All right, so this is a review of your linear equations. We got some vocabulary words here that you should already know because this is a review. First one is slope. Slope. Can somebody else describe? It says here a vertical change divided by the horizontal change. Give me another way to describing it. To describe slope. What is it? Yeah, but it's rise over run, right? It's rise over run. Basically, guys, how would you explain it to a 5-year-old? How would you explain slope to a 5-year-old? Good. It's steepness, right? Or sometimes if it's going up, we like to say the word incline. If it's going down, it's the word decline, right? So, okay, so a 7-year-old, 8-year, 10-year-old maybe? All right, 10-year-old. So, all right, here we go. The next one is slope-intercept form. I know you know it because you all know the y equals mx plus b. You might not have known that that's what it's called. It's called a slope-intercept. Why is it called that? Because there's only two important parts in this. The m, which is the slope, and the b, which is the y-intercept. Hence the words slope-intercept form. Okay, because all it really, the m and the b are the only numbers. The x and the y stay. All right, then we have something called the point slope form. What do you think you need for this form? A point and a, mathematicians are not that creative, people. So here, again, this y and this x stay. And then what do you think this x1 and y1 come from? Your point, and then again, your m is the slope, okay? How do we describe parallel lines, okay? Everybody always tells me, oh, they're lines that never touch, okay? But that was like 7th grade definition. When you get to high school, parallel lines are lines that have the same slope. They're lines that have the same slope. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Because think about a line that has a slope of, I don't know, 2, okay? If another line anywhere else also had a slope of 2, wouldn't they never touch, right? What if slopes are different? Always. Always. No matter what. I don't care how different you think they are. Eventually, maybe it's over here, way over in 200, but eventually they're going to meet, okay? As long as they're different slopes, they're always going to intersect. Got it? All right, and then finally, perpendicular. Perpendicular, it has what we call negative reciprocal slopes. Maybe you might think, what does that even mean? Does everybody know what a reciprocal is? It's when you take a fraction, you do what with it, though? You flip it. So for instance, the reciprocal of 2 over 3 is? Very simple. What do you think a negative reciprocal means? So see, here's the thing. What if it's originally a negative? So if a negative of a negative turns it into a... So the way I like to think of it is it's more of an opposite reciprocal, because if your original is positive, then your other one is negative. If your original one is negative, your other one is positive. So just think of it switching the signs and flipping. Does that make sense? All right, so then again, this is a review, so you should know all this. Let's start easy. Can you sketch a graph? If I gave you an equation, can you sketch a graph? Okay, so without using the calculator, by the way. So y equals 2x plus 1. If I gave you that equation, y equals 2x plus 1, could you sketch this graph for me? Okay, first of all, you have to be able to dissect it. Can you describe this line anyway? So can you tell me some information about this line? So the slope, which is your m, right, is what? 2. Actually, more specifically, it's 2 over what? 2 over 1, right? Because if it's a whole number, you can always write a whole number over what? 1, okay? X is not part of your slope. So slope is always the number in front of x, okay? So in my case, my slope is 2 over 1. And remember, so technically this is my rise and this is my run. So I know I'm going to rise 2 and run 1. All right, what else can you tell me about this equation? What is the y-intercept? Positive 1, right? So with that information, guys, you can sketch a graph. It's very easy to sketch a graph there, okay? I know that at 1, I'm going to cross the y-axis. So does everybody agree, like right here, I'll cross the y-axis? And then using my slope, I can find the next point. what does my slope tell me to do? Go up 2 over 1. And actually, you can continue to do that. I can continue to go up 2 over 1. Up 2 over 1. Up 2 over 1. And eventually, with enough dots, I get a line. That simple. So really, for a linear equation, all you really need to know is two things. What's the slope? What's the y-intercept? Okay? Any questions on that? Pretty simple. Let's look at the next one. It says y equals 2. Okay? So, is that in the same form as the first one? Technically, yes it is. Technically, yes it is. So, could you tell me, so I want this to look like this. I want this to look like this. But obviously, what is it missing? There's no x. So then if there is no x, what's my m? 0. Very good. So this is really y equals 0x plus what? Plus 2. So this is this. Does everybody agree with that? Okay. So now that helps me. So then what's my slope? 0. So then what does a line with no slope look like? All lines are straight, by the way. You're not thinking of the word straight. You're thinking of the word what? Somebody said it. It's a horizontal line. It's a horizontal because think about it. It's not rising anything, right? It's not rising or it's not going down. So it's just running. Essentially, it's just running. Okay? And if you think about it, my slope is technically over 1. So I'm not going up. I'm just going 1 and then 1 to the right, or to the left. Does that make sense? So for instance, what's the y-intercept of this one then? 2. So 1, 2. And then we said what kind of line was it? A horizontal line right there at 2. Very simple, very simple. Any questions on that? So even though there's not an x in your equation, you can express it with an x as long as that x, or as long as the m is 0. You good with that? All right. Let's keep going. Actually, I want you to try these on your own. Try these on your own. Okay? All right. So for the first one, tell me something. What's the slope? -3 over 1. And what's my b, my y-intercept? Okay, so where do I start? You start at -2. So on your y-axis, you know you're going to have a point at -2. And then according to your slope, you're going to do what? Is it up or down? Down. Why is it down? So then it's 1, 2, 3 down, 1 to the right. And you can continue. 1, 2, 3 down, 1 to the right. What if, because this always happens, right? What if you run out of graph or you can't actually do it to the right anymore? You do it to the left, but you do, instead of going down, you'll go up 3 and to the left. Okay? And then, of course, just pretend that's a straight line and connect the dots. Simple as that. We good? The next one looks kind of weird, right? So then what did you do? Good. Because remember, you want it y equals mx plus b. So in order for it to be y equals mx plus b, y needs to be by itself. So very simple. Get y by itself by moving the x. But I can't just write it over there. I have to actually what? Subtract it. So it would be a -x plus 2. -x plus 2. Now, can you tell me two things? Can you tell me what the slope is? -1 over 1. And what's my b? +2. So, where do I start? +2. So 1, 2. And then according to my slope, I do what? Go down 1 to the right 1. Down 1 to the right 1. And then I can continue. So there, whoops, pretend that those go through the points. Okay? And then just connect the dots. Remember, the best way to see the equation of a line is always y equals mx plus b. So that just means get y by itself. Just get y by itself. Any questions so far? We good? All right. Let's talk about how do I find a slope? What if all I have is 2 points? What if all I have is 2 points? Well, if you have a graph, it's easy. All you got to do is count, right? Uh, if you have a graph, it's easy. But if you don't have a graph, it's very simple too. You actually have a formula. So here's your formula to find slope. Again, all you need is 2 points. All you need is 2 points. And you just have this formula. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay? y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then there's a very important stipulation down here. This says where x1 does not equal x2. Why can these x's not be the same? Well, remember, we're talking about 2 points. So think about these x's being the same. So let's say if I were to plug in my formula and they were the same, what would actually happen? What would I get? I would get 0, right? Because if they were both 5, it would be 5 minus 5, which is 0. So can I ever have 0 in a denominator? No. You see why they can't be the same? Okay? If they are the same, does anybody know what kind of line or slope it is? It's an undefined. What does that look like? It's a vertical line, right? It's a vertical line. Okay? So if it has a 0 in the denominator, if you get a 0, if it's undefined, it's a vertical line, straight up and down. Everybody good? Got this formula? Okay, that's the important part, is the formula right here. All right, let's try and use this thing. Okay, very simple, very simple. I have 2 points. All they want me to do is find the slope in between. Have 2 points, find the slope in between. Okay? So once again, you don't have to copy it, but my formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So do me a favor, plug it in. What is this going to look like? 1 minus 0 over. So it's minus a negative. What happens when you minus a negative? Becomes plus 2. Okay, so what do I get? What's 1 minus 0? What is 1 minus 0? 1. And what's 3 plus 2? 5. Is that an acceptable slope? Yeah, according to this, what will I do? Go up 1 to the right 5. Simple as that. Okay? Next one. I have 2 points, negative 1, 2, comma 2, and 2, comma 2. All right, same thing. Plug me in. What's it going to look like? 2 minus 2 over 2 plus 1. Again, why does it become plus? Because it's minus a negative, right? Minus a negative. What do I get on the top? 0. What do I get on the bottom? 3. Can I get 0 on the top? Yes, I can. 0 can be in the top. The only place it can't be is the bottom. So what kind of line has 0 in the top? It's a horizontal line. Very good. This is what we call a 0 slope. It's a horizontal line. Okay, so 0 on the top, okay. 0 on the bottom, not okay. Does everybody got that? Okay, any questions so far? Too easy, right? Okay, do me a favor, you try it. Take you that long. Over here, I have, plug it in. What is it going to be? Over. What is that? What's negative 1 minus 4? Negative 5 over 1. Negative 5 over 1. Is that an acceptable slope? Yes. How else could I write? Well, negative 5 over 1 is just negative 5 too, right? So you can write them either way. Most likely you'll see it like this, but if you're ever going to use it on a graph, you'll see it, or it makes sense to think of it that way, okay? All right, last one here. It would be what? 1 minus 4 over 3 minus 3. 1 minus 4 is what? Negative 3 over 0. Is that a problem? So what is this? So then we say this is an undefined slope, and we already talked about it. What kind of line would that be? This would be a vertical line. This would be a vertical line. Going through where? Where would this vertical line be? It's actually pretty simple to figure out. They both have the same x, don't they? Right? They both have the same x, so it would be 1, 2, 3, 1, and 3, 4. So it's actually going right here through 3. So this is the equation of the line, x equals 3. So when you ever see an equation of a line, it just says x equals 3, then it's a vertical line going right through that 3. Okay? All right. Now, what I want us to do now is we're going to write an equation of a line. So I want to know what the actual equation is. So in the end, I always want my y equals mx plus b. Okay? I want my y equals mx plus b. We're going to start off here with the point slope form. Okay? So we have the point slope formula. Again, just from the name alone, what am I going to need? A point and a slope. Okay? So here's the formula I'm going to use. The y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. Again, this x1 and this y1 are my what? The point, the x1 and the y1 are the point. My m is my slope. This x and this y stay there. Okay? I don't plug in or substitute anything for that. All right? So, here we go. Let's try this. Very simple. It says find the slope-intercept form of an equation given a point and slope form. Remember, I want the slope-intercept form. So that means the y equals mx plus b. So essentially, in the end, I want y by itself. I want y by itself, okay? So, here's my m. Here's my m. What is this? My x1, and this is my y1. Okay, so my formula was this. So plug it in. What is it going to look like? Y plus 2. Again, why is it plus? Minus a negative. So y plus 2 equals 3 parentheses x minus 1. Remember, this x and this y always stay there. Okay? So now, does this look like this yet? No. So let's make it. What is this 3 doing, by the way? So I have to, it's being multiplied, so I have to actually, what is that called? Distribute. So what do when I distribute, what does that give me? And then I still have a y plus 2 over here. Does this look like this yet? Almost. What's the only thing I got to do? Get rid of the 2, so subtract 2 from both sides. So that leaves me with y equals 3x minus 5. By the way, how did I know I was going to subtract 2 from here and not from here? This doesn't have an x, right? Remember, you can only add or subtract like terms. So then now, is this in y equals mx plus b form? Yes, it is. What's the m? 3. What's the b? Negative 5. Simple as that. Simple as that, okay? We good? Do me a favor. Try this one on your own. Try this one on your own. All right. Shouldn't take you that long. Plug it in. What is it going to be? Ooh. Why remember, the only reason it was plus on over here was because it was a negative. So when you minus a negative, it turned it into a plus, right? So it should be y minus 4 equals to negative 2 parentheses. And now this one does get turned into a plus because it's minus a negative, so x plus 3, right? Now what? Distribute the 2, so that gives me negative 2x minus 6. I still have a y minus 4. My last step then. Add 4, so I get y equals negative 2x minus 2. When you add 4 to negative 6, it becomes a negative 2. Very simple, very simple. Any questions so far? Okay, let's get to the fun stuff. Talk about parallel and perpendicular lines. So you already took the definitions. So just one more time, let's reiterate. When you have parallel and perpendicular lines, okay? So slope, basically, how do I know lines are parallel and perpendicular? Is when... Alright, so slope, guys, and you can tell that lines are parallel or perpendicular without even looking at a picture. All you have to do is look at their equations. And really, all you have to do is look at their slopes. How can I tell that lines are parallel? Without looking at a picture, how can I tell they're parallel? They have the same slope. How can I tell that they're perpendicular? First of all, what does perpendicular mean? They meet at a right angle. It has to be a right angle. So a lot of students think, oh, they just cross. No, no, no. They have to cross at a right angle. But does anybody have a protractor on them to make sure that it's a right angle? A protractor? No. So it's not like we can sit there and actually measure the angle. So the easiest way is to just look at the slopes. The slopes have to be what we called earlier opposite reciprocals or negative reciprocals. So as long as the slope is flipped and one's positive, the other one's negative, they're perpendicular. Simple as that. Okay? So here we go. Here's the situation we have. It says find the slope-intercept form, so find the y equals mx plus b, of an equation rather, that passes through the point 2, 5 and is parallel to the line y equals 2x minus 4. Okay? And then I also want us to find the perpendicular. So we're going to do two things. We're going to find the parallel, and then we're going to find the perpendicular. Okay? Let's start with the parallel. So, what do I need? What do I need to even start an equation of a line? Well, my last formula, which was the y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, what did I need to get started in this one? What was this called again? This was called the point slope form. So, what do I need? A point, and I need a slope. What did they give me? So, is everybody good? I got a point, right? I got a point. What do I need? The slope. Now, they didn't say, here's your slope. They didn't say your m is this, right? They didn't even give me another point, because if I had another point, couldn't I find the slope, right, with that other formula? So, they didn't even give me that. All they told me was that I am going to be parallel to that line. When they tell you that, they're giving you the slope. Because what do we know? They have to be the same. So what's the slope of that line? 2. So then obviously, what's the slope of my line? 2. So then I already know my m is 2. Does that make sense? So then do I have everything I need? Okay, so now let's just plug it in and knock it out. Okay, so what would it be? 5 equals to 2 parentheses. Okay, now distribute that 2, so it would give me, and then, so y equals 2x plus 1. Does this look like an equation of a line that's perpendicular to the other one? Yeah. Okay, so as long as they have the same slope, they are perpendicular. Some students get confused and they're like, sir, well, doesn't that have to be 2x plus 4? Do they need to have the same y-intercept? Remember, if they had the same slope and the same y-intercept, they'd be the same line, right? So they'd literally be on top of each other. And that is not perpendicular, because perpendicular means that they never touch. If they're the same line, they're always touching. Okay? So keep that in mind. How then will I do perpendicular? Same formula, same point. The only difference is going to be what? What's the difference between parallel and perpendicular slopes? So we know parallel, they were the same. So perpendicular means that they need to be opposite what? Reciprocals. Opposite reciprocals. So what's the slope of this line right now? 2. Technically, it's 2 over what? 2 over 1. So if I take the reciprocal, it's 1 over 2. However, remember, that's the reciprocal part. Opposite means if one's positive, the other one is. So this one is positive, so mine's going to be, so then what's my slope? Negative 1 over 2. You see how easy that is to get the perpendicular? So you just have to flip it and pay attention to the sign. Okay? It's not always going to be negative. It's not always going to be positive. It depends on the original. Okay? It depends on the original. You just have to be opposite of that sign. Okay? So now, do I have everything I need? Okay, so the algebra is going to be a little bit probably more difficult here because we're dealing with fractions. But, so plug it in. What is it going to look like? Y minus 5 equals to negative 1/2 parentheses x minus 2. Now what? Distribute the half, so I have y minus 5 still. What's negative 1/2 times x? Just negative 1/2 x. And what's negative half of 2? It becomes a positive 1. Why is it positive? Negative times a negative makes it a positive 1. And then last step, add the 5. So I get y equals negative 1/2 x plus, remember, what am I doing? Adding 5. So 1 plus 5 is 6. So just by looking, can you tell now that lines are parallel and perpendicular without a picture? You're really only paying attention to the what? To the slopes. That's all you need. Any questions on that? Was the process difficult? Okay. So again, if they're parallel, you know they're exactly the same. If they're perpendicular, they're, what do we call them? Opposite reciprocals. Opposite reciprocals. Okay. So do me a favor. You try this one on your own. Yeah. Okay, so here, basically, I need to get y by itself. So what would I do first to get y by itself? Subtract 2x. So does everybody agree it would be a negative 3y equals a negative 2x plus 5? Okay. And then now what? Divide what by negative 3? Everything. Everything. So y gets alone. A negative 2 divided by a negative 3 gives me positive, but then it's just what? 2 over 3. And that's okay. X. And then this one's tricky. It would be a negative 5 over 3. So let's see how good your fraction math is, okay? Let's see how good your fraction math. Actually, do I even care about this? No, because I'm pulling only the slope for parallel and perpendicular, right? So now, take some more time. Now that we at least have our original equation, down. Now, find me the parallel. It goes through this point. Find me the perpendicular. It goes to the same point. Okay, so for the parallel, what do I know? What's the slope? 2 over 3, and of course the point is 2, negative 1. Okay, so then plug it in. What is it going to look like? Y plus 1. Again, why does it become plus? Minus a negative. Okay, equals 2 over 3 x minus 2. Okay, now let's see how good your fraction math is. Okay, so I have y plus 1 equals to what? 2 over 3x. So 1 and 1/3, we stopped using mixed numbers in I think, what, 5th grade? So what do we use then? Good, leave it as negative 4 over 3. So improper fractions are what we're going to use, okay? So minus 4/3. Now what? I have to subtract 1, but there is no... So how do I subtract 1 from a fraction? Huh? It's actually easier than you think. I know you guys realize I'm going to subtract 1, right? Okay, so then what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to subtract 3 over 3 is 1, isn't it? Right, so I'm going to subtract 3 over 3. So then it's y equals 2/3 x. And then what's negative 4 minus 3? Negative 7 over 3. Okay? So what if this was a 2? Then what would this be? 6 over 3. If it was a 3, 9 over 3. Does everybody see how that works? Okay, remember, because in order for you to add or subtract fractions, they have to have what? Common denominators. They have to have common denominators. Okay, so you should get that. For perpendicular, what's the slope? Negative 3 over 2. And the point is the same. Okay, so then it's going to be what? Y plus 1 equals to negative 3 over 2 x minus 2. So I get y plus 1 equals to negative 3 over 2x. And then what's negative? First of all, it's a negative times a negative, so I know it's going to be a positive. And negative, or 3 over 2 times 2? It's actually really simple. Imagine this is a fraction, and you're multiplying them. If you have the same on both top and bottom, what actually happens? They cancel. So 2 over 2, the 2's cancel, so technically it's just 3 over 1, or just 3. Okay? And then finally, subtract 1, so y equals negative 3 over 2x plus 2. Okay, so anything new with linear equations? Did you guys know how to do all of this? Yeah? Fantastic. All right, so then let's practice.